Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. You know, one reality of the world we live in today is that there are a lot of people out there, a lot of agencies, organizations that are looking to do nothing more than deny us our rights, especially our Second Amendment rights. And I'm not talking like private little anti-gun groups, I'm talking government groups, state and federal. Everything from law enforcement up to all the alphabet agencies. It seems like every alphabet agency out there in the government now has their own private standing army. Bureau of Land Management, IRS, ATF. They've got these little armies that they have just so they can overpower the people when needed. And if you don't think that's true, if you think I'm being hyperbolic, well, ask them. Ask BLM why they have, and I mean Bureau of Land Management, why they have, I'm sure you get a different answer if you ask the other BLM, but ask the Bureau of Land Management, why do you have so many armed agents on the payroll? And they'll tell you flat out, well, often when we go out to enforce the rules, seize property or whatever, the people that we're fighting against band together and they're all armed, so we have to be able to meet force with greater force. We have to be able to force our authority upon them. That's their goal. That's the reality we live in now. Law enforcement agencies have been turned into private little standing armies. That's what the militarization of the police is about. It's about turning them into a front line between the government and the people that answers to the government, as do all these little alphabet agencies. Well, that reality that we live in, that these organizations want to deny us our rights and want to step on our other rights, that has brought up a pretty interesting question in my live chat. And we do live chats every day, 5 p.m. on Monday and Wednesday, 6 p.m. every other day if you want to come on over. That brought up a question in my live chat the other night someone asked that I thought was pretty interesting, and I'm going to try to answer it. Don't know if I will be because it's a pretty intricate question. There's a lot of factors here. They said, if these manufacturers that make these guns are selling to these agencies that want to prevent us from being able to buy the same items, should we stop buying them? Should we boycott them? If you sell to the alphabet agencies or local law enforcement that oversteps their bounds or other agencies like that, should we say we're not buying your product? Well, that is something that does sound good in principle. I could agree with it on its face, but there's a lot of factors we have to take into account here. The first of which is, well, then who would we buy from? Because pretty much every reputable manufacturer deals with government agencies, period. We'd be left buying Kel-Tecs and Cobras, I think. And I don't want that. But let's say that there is a world where we could tell agencies or tell manufacturers, if you sell to these agencies, we won't buy from you, and see if they would change. Well, there's one big problem with that, even if we told them that. Well, if they acquiesce to what we were saying, they'd go out of business. A lot of these bigger companies count on their government contracts, their law enforcement contracts, their military contracts. If we say, oh, you can't say to the ATF, sell to the ATF or the FBI, well, what about the military? And like I said before, law enforcement. That's really going to make it hard for these companies to stay alive if they agreed to do that. So it's just not really feasible financially. Look what happened to Colt when they lost their government contracts. They are now not an independent company. They're now owned by CZ, and that's because they lost their government contract. A lot of manufacturers out there are one government contract away, if they lose it, from going out of business. So it would be something that would be really, really hard for them to do. Now, I know some people say, well, yeah, but there's boutique manufacturers out there, and they survive without government contracts. Yeah, but they're small. They don't provide a lot of guns. Now, you could say maybe they would prosper and grow if, like Smith & Wesson and Glock and everyone else went out of business because they were selling to the government, that they'd be able to prosper. But here's the thing. If Smith & Wesson, Glock, etc. just started selling to agencies and just started selling to the government, etc., they'd probably still stay in business. So these organizations would just have the civilian market, and they probably wouldn't get very big. Probably have a lot more small manufacturers, but nothing on the scale of what we have now, that we can enjoy the different varieties, etc., that we enjoy now. So probably just fiscally not possible. Even the small boutique manufacturers, they dream of the day they get a government contract, law enforcement, military, etc., because that's how, when they know they've made it. So like I said, financially, it would be really difficult to hold them to that in this world. They just probably wouldn't be able to exist. And if they went out of business because we boycotted them for selling to the government wouldn't be without guns. They'd just start buying from Brazil or another country. They'd buy some other manufacturer that doesn't exist here in this country, that doesn't rely on civilian market at all. So we would gain probably nothing out of that. So I think selling to these agencies, even though they're heinous the way they treat the people and how blatantly they want to strip the rights from the people, I don't think we can require gun manufacturers to not sell to them because, like I said, it just isn't financially possible. But even if it was financially possible, should we? Should we say, hey, do it or else we're not going to buy your product? Even then, I don't know. I'm going to have to say maybe, because here's the thing. Should the manufacturer be in any way responsible for how the people they sell to use their product? Should car lots, if someone comes into a car lot to buy a car, let's say they come in on their lunch hour and the salesman smells alcohol on them, should he not sell them a car because that person drinks alcohol and therefore they're liable to drive drunk? And if they do, it's the salesman and the manufacturer's fault, You get into kind of dangerous territory when you start asking manufacturers to choose who they sell to. Most of them, rely on this, like I said, and plus, I don't think most of them even give a lot of thought into what agencies doing what with their guns. I think they're just like, we sold this many guns, stockholders are getting this much money this year. They're a business. They don't really have morals. The ownership has morals, but in these companies, it's a board of ownership, it's stockholders, and people, when they tend to get together to make money, morals are on the back burner. So I don't know if we should even hold them responsible because, like I said, should they be responsible for the actions of people who buy their products? Should they be responsible for the actions of individuals that buy their products? Let's say, the Kentucky State Militia or whatever went in and said, hey, Glock, will you sell us guns at a 10% discount because there's 100 of us? And if they say, sure, are they then responsible for what that organization does, good or bad? I don't think they are. They're just a manufacturer making a product. They're basically a robot at that point, turning out a product that it's then up to the free will of the people involved how they use it. So even though I do think, yes, in a perfect world, these gun manufacturers would say to the government, hey, when you try to take the rights away from the people, we're going to not sell to you. That'd be awesome. And I would love if we lived in a world where they could afford to do that because we, the civilians, bought enough product to keep them afloat, but we don't do that. A lot of us are cheap. Very few of us buy a bunch of guns. It's just not something most people do. And some of us don't do it because we're cheap, like I said. So it's just not feasible. And like I said, so when you look at it fiscally, it's just not something that can be done. Boycotting all the ones that do would leave you with no options really of anything to buy. And when it comes down to, are they really responsible for the actions of these agencies? These are our government agencies run by the people we vote in. So they're doing what we allow them to do. We always say, hey, let's get rid of everybody. But unfortunately, everybody on the left's idea of getting rid of everybody means everybody except for their people. And everybody on the right thinks getting rid of everybody means everybody but their people. So we'll never get rid of them. We allow this to happen. So whose fault is it really? It's ours. So should we hold the manufacturer responsible? I don't know, but I don't think so. Like I said, they're just making a product. It's the people that are taking the product and doing the wrong thing with it that are responsible. And they answer to us supposedly. So if we're not holding them accountable and not holding ourselves accountable for not holding them accountable, then how can we possibly hold the manufacturers accountable?